Nice.
Jai, Hare Krishna. Welcome to our first session, Soul Ashraya podcast. We are your hosts, Balaram Shaktidas and Bhakti Jake. And we are starting this podcast to have a Sangha community network for the nourishment of our bhakti, our spiritual practice, through the hearing and discussion of the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. So we'll be working through this very special book, Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I was thinking before the show what we could say, or what I could say, just as a very brief introduction. The concepts, we're reading this book, and this is a very special book. It's a very unique book. Just the title alone kind of hints, it's just Krishna. It's like, it's not really explaining anything. It's just giving you Krishna. So, who is Krishna? So that's kind of the idea. It's like, who is Krishna? What is our relationship to him? What is the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and what is the relevance and so forth for us. And it's kind of striking at the heart of bhakti-yoga, Krsna Consciousness, becoming conscious of Krishna. And I was just reflecting a bit on what Prabhupada has given us. He's given us light, really in the darkness of this age, simply through the direct transmission of Krishna. So it's a very wonderful thing, but I was thinking I could just very briefly share that there are three things that we need to understand, basically, and these are the three items of knowledge that are absolutely essential for any spiritual advancement in any path that you're on. And hopefully through all this, and also through what we're going to read today, we can understand just how universal this science is that we're studying, getting into. And of course, not only is it universal, but it goes above and beyond. Okay, well, are you seeing the video?
Yeah.
Tripping out
Yeah.
there?
Wow.
Wow. That's pretty intense. Just gonna tell him to take a chill pill for a minute.
Wow.
I don't think there's anything I can do about that. Okay, except maybe just do that. Okay, that's fine. What? What is going on? Okay, Balaram's having a seizure over here, so we'll just continue with that.
Some amazing special effects right there.
So maybe I'll switch over to the phone next week. Yeah, so three items of knowledge, and this is always helpful for us to repeat, and just try to understand more deeply. And that's Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. So those mean, first, what is our constitutional nature in relationship with the whole, with everything? Who are we? Who is God? What is our relationship? What's the nature of this world? So on and so forth. So these fundamental big questions, if you will, constitute Sambandha Jnana. And so the idea is that we are a eternal part and parcel of the personality of Godhead. And our nature, that spiritual nature is covered over by material energy. So the second item of knowledge is, okay, well, how then is that nature covered and how is it discovered? Right? How do we rekindle the consciousness of our relationship with the Supreme Whole, with Krishna? And so that is called the process of Krishna consciousness. And then the third item is, what is the end result? What is the nature of the spiritual world? What is the actual experience of Krishna consciousness? When one is in this transcendental consciousness, what are the symptoms and so forth here, and what is the destination at the time of death? And that's also another very important consideration. It's like Stephen Covey, 7 Healthy Habits, right? Did you ever read that?
No, I haven't heard of him.
7 Healthy Habits of Highly Effective People was the name of a best-selling book. It's one of the original like self-help books, and he really kind of set the standard.
Okay, I have heard of that. Yeah,
Yeah, I
came
I
out
think
like years ago, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, so one of them is begin with the end in mind. It's like if you're gonna be effective, his book's about being effective. So you need to know what is the prayojana, what is the goal, where are we going with all of this, right? Because if you don't know that, um, it's like how do they say, if you don't know where you're going, any way will take you there. Any way you go will take you there. It's like, and where is it taking? Nowhere. You don't know. So if we don't know the destination, if we don't know what is awaiting us at the time of death, then we're simply wasting our life. And so this is, relevant for literally everyone. And, you might think, oh, no, I'm not wasting my life. I'm enjoying. And it's like, no, you don't understand. If you don't have any philosophy that explains what happens after the time of death, you can't say for certain whether you're utilizing your life properly. So these things are there. And the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, the wisdom texts of India, they and actually all bona fide scriptural texts must kind of by definition include these 3 items. So to varying degrees, they explain who you are, who is God, what is the spiritual world, and how to go back there. And so the idea of Krishna consciousness is very wonderful because simply by hearing about Krishna, that itself is the process. And anyway, there's so much that we could go on and on about that, as I'm sure we will. But yeah, I thought to just share that.
Yep. What was
Those,
the first one again? I tried to write it down, but
Sambandha, Sambandha.
okay. And that's the like the who, where, what,
Nature.
why.
That's the nature, the constitutional nature of the soul and its relationship with the Supreme. So it's knowledge of yourself, knowledge of God, and knowledge of, what's the nature of relation. It's not just enough to say like I believe in God or God exists. It's like, well, what does his existence mean for your existence? Are you just some totally random, iteration of, that sprouted out of the material energy and somehow acquired a soul, through some, mysterious law of nature, and you have an opportunity to go to this other being. So this is kind of like dualism, is there's God and there's everything else, and we're part of the everything else, and we need to basically reject this world and go to his world, and he's not really interacting with this place. He's just kind of sitting up there in the clouds judging people and getting angry or whatever. But that's not a very not a very good philosophy, right? So and then on the other side you have non-dualism, which says no, everything's one, it's all one thing, and so we're all part of that. And if you take that to its ultimate conclusion of well, that means it's all one thing, and there's no difference between you and me or anything, everything is illusion, then all idea of difference or variegatedness, variety, is all illusion. And so it's like, well, that's not true either. There's God and there's us and there's the world, and the highest truth is relationship, actually. And the highest relationship, obviously, the only real relationship is love. Whenever there's persons, the interaction between persons is known as love. That's what persons do. That is the constitutional nature of the soul, is being a part and parcel of the Supreme Soul. Our nature is to love. It's not like you're a part of God, but your nature is, insert whatever material designation or concept of self you want. No, that's not your actual nature. So the nature of personalities, meaning parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality, is to love. And so all relationship, actually, that's what's there. And whenever we're not loving, whenever we're not exhibiting that feature of the soul, it's to be understood that we're covered over. The soul is being covered over, and we can call that impersonalism, or the material condition, Jiva Bhuta.
So that's the first one. That all that is part of the first.
Yeah.
So what were these called again?
Sambandha, Abhideya.
Oh no, all three of these things put together.
Just 3 items of knowledge, I would say. Yeah. 3 categories of spiritual knowledge. Yeah, so everything that you want to know about spiritual life is.
That's pretty heavy. There's a lot there.
Yeah, everything's there.
So you've got the what I have for the first one is the constitution of knowledge of self and God.
Of the self and of God.
So
which
kind of like the first.
It's like, who are you? Like, who are you? What is your relationship with God?
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And then for the second one, I have the process of Krsna consciousness.
Yeah.
Or you could say God consciousness.
Right. Yeah. How do we act in, so if you take the first, on the foundation of the first item, how does one act? What is the active principle? What do you do with that knowledge? And that acting in that knowledge must invariably bring you to the result of being Krishna conscious. It's not like you do this and it, who knows what happened. No, like this, it's a very definite, scientific process. If you act in knowledge of your relationship with Krishna, you'll become Krishna conscious. And so there's a whole science to that. What does it look like to act in spiritual life? And the third is, what's the destination?
Right. Yeah.
What's Krishna like? What does it look like? We should know that too, because we want to know where we're going. So this idea, that the subtitle of this book, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is find that is particularly relevant to what we're saying. Very interesting and wonderful, that because we are persons, and if we understand these, the sambandha, basically, that we're a part and parcel of the Supreme Person, we're eternally a person. It's like as a child, myself, and I remember someone recently saying the same thing, like they were wondering, like, how does it work when I die, and like my stream of consciousness is forever, terminated into oblivion. It's like I can try to imagine nothingness, but it's like if it was just a blank screen and then I just get a blank screen for the rest of eternity because I'm dead, it's like that doesn't make any sense. Like that just wouldn't work. So it's it's like the law of conservation of energy, right? You can't lose consciousness completely. It can be covered over a lot, like when we are deeply intoxicated or deeply asleep or in a coma, or like the first few years of our life, it's very low level consciousness, typically, not for everyone, but anyway, we can see, just because you weren't conscious doesn't mean the world didn't exist or you didn't exist. No, you were still existing. You just don't have any memory of it. And it makes sense when we understand the nature, when the scriptures explain why it is that your memory gets covered over. It's a necessity, actually, for you to forget. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to do the things that you came here to do, which is basically enjoy the material energy. So the super soul is giving you an opportunity to do that. And all of that's doing is it's taking us away from him, the Supreme Person, and more into his external energy, the material nature. And in that way, we get caught up and conditioned, spellbound, if you will, and that's the impersonalism. You become impersonal because you're getting away from the Supreme Person and you're getting into that which is not personality, namely material energy. This is all very abstract, but it's very important to understand. The nature of the self is to be personal and loving on the level of the soul, meaning interacting with other persons, as souls, as part of the Supreme Person, and not just as energy, which is something that we exploit when we're in that mode of consciousness. So what's so wonderful about Krishna book is that we're hearing directly of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that's automatically awakening us to real personality. You are imbibing the Supreme Personality, which is the source of your personality. Makes sense?
Oh, yeah. So do you want to dive right into the Krishna book right now?
Yeah. Let's so we'll start with our invocation mantras.
Okay.
Yeah, and we'll do that every session to invoke the blessings of our teachers, invoking also the Supreme Consciousness, Krishna Consciousness.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
try your video again.
Okay.
I wonder if it'll work now.
Okay.
No light show. No club remix.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, I don't think I'd really experienced anything quite like that before. So hopefully that was.
It knows we're about to pray, so it's gone now.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 And we can chant together the next one.
Okay.
Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatyade Shatarine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Jai.
Right.
So with heartfelt and humble respect at the feet of our great teachers, this great lineage, and invoking presence of Vasudev, Sri Krishna, let us begin, embark on this great and wonderful text of Krishna book. All right, do you want to start with words from Apple?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't mind reading at all.
Yeah, we'll just alternate.
Yeah. So, okay. So
You can
I
just
will
go
say,
through it.
yeah, I'll just say that this is all something that George Harrison wrote specifically for this book. Okay. Just to make that clear.
Do you want to say anything else about that? Are you familiar somewhat with that backstory?
I am kind of familiar with it. I know that George Harrison was I know that he got close to Prabhupada, right?
He's very close, yeah.
So Prabhupada was his guru. He was initiated. I'm
He didn't
assuming.
take formal initiation.
Oh, okay.
No. Yeah, so I'm friends with Malati Devidasi, who she was one of the three original couples. Her and Shyama were married at the time, that went to London to meet the Beatles, and Shyama became one of George's best friends, until death. He was there when George left his body. And they were chanting Hare Krishna. He's not able to disclose any more details than that, but
Mm.
he went back to Godhead as the image that he kind of impressed. Anyway, Malati also has spoken about their interactions and how George was he deeply loved Prabhupada. You know, he loved Prabhupada very much, is what she said. And um, anyway, this is public knowledge. I believe it's published in several books. Definitely Sham Sundar's book that, um, from what I understand, I haven't read through it yet, but that he asked Prabhupada if he should shave up, you know, shave his head and take initiation and live in a temple. And Prabhupada said, no, 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 it's not necessary. You just keep doing what you're doing. You know, you can sing about Krishna, you know, have Krishna in your songs, and that way can spread all over the world. Um,
Yeah,
yeah,
I had heard that as well, is that he had gone to Prabhupada really wanting to really turn himself over and just kind of like give everything to Krishna. And Prabhupada said, look, you've got so many resources, you know, you can play music, you know a lot of people, you're obviously one of the most famous people in the world. So
yeah,
why don't you just use your resources to spread Krishna consciousness? And I mean that is pretty much what happened, you know? Like he didn't, I
yeah,
don't know. It's just so amazing. It's so amazing how he, of all the Beatles, you know it was going to be George. you know, I mean, he's just got that thing of like he's been there, done that kind of a thing, and it's like, okay, we had all this fun and I found like nothing but a void at the end of it. I need God in my life, like people need God in their lives. So yeah, pretty amazing story there, really. And there's so much more
yeah,
I'm sure that we could say about that too. But
yeah. But anyway, he sponsored the first printing of this book. Um,
yeah. Oh, okay. Okay.
yeah, I and that is also a whole story, 'cause it's like when they asked him, and Shamsun didn't want to ask him, you know, because they were friends, and it's a rasa boss, it's conflicting to the
Yeah.
nature of the friendship, to do that. Um, but when he did, and George hesitated, then there's this like huge lightning strike, like a thunderclap. Like the lights went out for a second,
Really?
and he was like, "Okay, I guess I'll do this." Yeah, I mean, it
Wow.
wasn't a big. It was maybe $10,000 or something. Not a big deal for him. But
Yeah.
so yeah, so he wrote this really incredible segment here.
Yeah. Well, I'll start reading it if you want.
Yeah,
See if we can get the introduction in.
yeah,
All right. Okay. All right. Everybody is looking for Krishna. Some don't realize that they are, but they are. Krishna is God, the source of all that exists, the cause of all that is, was, or ever will be. As God is unlimited, he has many names. Allah, Buddha, Jehovah, Rama, all are Krishna, all are one. God is not abstract. He has both the impersonal and the personal aspects to his personality, which is supreme, eternal, blissful, and all full of knowledge. As a single drop of water has the same qualities as an ocean of water, so has our consciousness the qualities of God's consciousness. But through our identification and attachment with consciousness, oh, I'm sorry. I'm
with
so sorry.
yeah,
Yeah, sorry. But through our identification and attachment with material energy, physical body, sense pleasures, material possessions, ego, etc., our true transcendental consciousness has been polluted. And like a dirty mirror, it is unable to reflect a pure image. I'll read this last little bit right here and then I'll hand it over.
Okay.
With many lives, our association with the temporary has grown. This impermanent body, a bag of bones and flesh, is mistaken for our true self. And we have accepted this temporary condition to be final. Through all ages, great saints have remained as living proof that this non-temporary, permanent state of God consciousness can be revived in all living souls. Each soul is potentially divine. So good. So good. So much there. I mean, there is so much just heavy, just so much information right there. But go ahead.
I mean, that's that's the whole Sambandha Gyan, explained in just a couple paragraphs right there, just a few sentences. Okay, let's keep going. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, steady in the self, being freed from all material contamination, the yogi achieves the highest perfectional stage of happiness, in touch with the Supreme Consciousness. That's chapter 6, verse 28. Yoga, a scientific method for God or self-realization, is the process by which we purify our consciousness, stop further pollution, and arrive at the state of perfection, full knowledge, and full bliss. If there's a God, I want to see him. It's pointless to believe in something without proof, and Krishna consciousness and meditation are methods where you can actually obtain God perception. You can actually see God and hear him, play with him. It might sound crazy, but he is actually there, actually with you. There are many yogic paths, Raja, Jnana, Hatha, Kriya, Karma, Bhakti, which are all acclaimed by the masters of each method. Swami Bhaktivedanta is, as his title says, a bhakti yogi following the path of devotion. By serving God through each thought, word, and deed, and by chanting his holy names, the devotee quickly develops God consciousness. By chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, one inevitably arrives at Krishna consciousness. The proof of the pudding is in the eating. I request that you take advantage of this book, Krishna, and enter into its understanding. I also request that you make an appointment to meet your God now, through the self-liberating process of yoga, union, and give peace a chance. All you need is love, Krishna, Hari Bol. George Harrison, 31,370. Apple Core, London. So, amazing. Wow.
It was down on Savile Row. Savile Row. That's where it was, the old Apple, right next to Abbey Road. Yeah.
Oh, is it really right next to Abbey Road?
Yeah, I've been there. No,
Oh, is that because isn't that where the studio is? Is like pretty close there.
I've been there in my mind.
Okay.
Just like staring at the album cover. Oh man, so cool. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. Oh man, so cool. In various states. Magical. Oh man.
Yeah. I was just thinking, when we see yoga, coming from a Christian background, often we can kind of get into this mindset of all things Eastern being related with the devil, or a lot of
So
people think like that, right?
so tr- so
You know,
true.
and actually, I was just watching a video. I don't. We might not continue the next section today. Maybe we'll start. I don't know. Because yeah, so we'll read the preface next, and it's yeah, good, like 6 pages. Um, but this is actually, I would like to share this though. This is very interesting. I was watching a video just yesterday. Um, Yesterday, day before, I guess, Thursday, yeah, that a god brother had sent me, um, relating to apostasy. Are you familiar with that term?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Christian
That they
term?
like that one around now. Yeah, apostasy.
Yeah.
The apostasy of the church is what they're saying is happening now. I guess is that what they're trying to say now? There's a falling away. That's what it
Yeah.
means.
Yeah, it
Okay.
means deviance. Yeah.
Okay.
So when someone deviates from the original teachings, um, and there is this very strong preacher, South African preacher, and he's very outspoken. He's obviously very empowered. He lives a pure life, and he preaches the gospel. Uh, but one of his videos, he was exposing this phenomena that occurred, I guess, in the 90s that I wasn't really aware of, but it makes sense. And we've talked about this before, I'm sure, was as in regards to the evangelical church and what happened. And I'm not sure if this was directly a conversation I had with you or with someone else. Why it's the whole name of evangelism got totally, how do you say, bad reputation to the very derogatory position in
Yeah.
the world's view, because
Yeah.
of what happened starting in Toronto. Apparently, was the laying on hands transferred this energy to people that made them act and look insane and even like drunk.
Mm.
You're familiar with like I forget what they called it, like the Toronto revival or something like that. Anyway, super far out, and he linked it with Kundalini. It's the same thing as the Indian yogis do when they put their finger on, someone's third eye or their hand on their head and give them Shaktipat. Shakti, of course, means potency or energy, and so it's a transference of energy, and it raises the Kundalini energy in the body. It's a very scientific thing. In the Western world is just like, what? That's crazy. Like, what even is that? It looks like you're being possessed by demons. It's like, well, it very well may be, because it's not a natural way to go about. That energy is meant to be all in relation with God, uh, but it can be manipulated. And this is where this is what I'm trying to get at. This is the God and the yoga thing, how those intersect and interface. Because in the West, that was never before seen. And actually, my god brother, here, who lives with me, he has incredible knowledge of history. He could go on. He did, just a couple weeks ago, he went on for over an hour on the history of like the Knights Templar and how they went over to the East and they brought back this occult knowledge, and they had to keep it hidden, and eventually they were executed because of it, because it's like, well, this is witchcraft. You guys are practicing this Kundalini stuff, and it's, freaks people out. But in the East, they just understand, yeah, there's different energy centers in the body, and you bring energy up and like different process. So I think what has happened is people generally, and they're either all about that, they just totally buy into the Eastern, or they stay in the Western conception. It's like, no, that yoga business, that's essentially evil. It's not related with God. And generally, even the people that are into Eastern stuff, that because they've so rejected the Western concept of God, that they take God out, they throw the baby out with bathwater, sort of thing, with the yoga, and they don't have a conception. I mean, I can speak from personal experience. This was my path. I just totally rejected the church and went down this path and was like, yeah, yoga, this makes sense. This is a science. I'm like having these experiences, but actually the only real experiences of God that I had were all prior to, pretty much, except the final one. I had just started Kundalini yoga. But they were prior to any engagement in yoga, or they're actually, I should say, they were completely independent. They didn't occur while I was doing any kind of yoga practice. They were all totally spontaneous. It was grace of God descended on me, and that was like the real Kundalini awakening that would just happen naturally. Then if you try to go undo it artificially, that's when you get all these problems, because you're opening yourself up to these higher states when you're not ready for that, because you don't have the foundation of surrender to God and living a godly, pure life. And so you can really mess yourself up, and that happens all the time.
Yeah.
All the time. So the real reconciliation here, when we talk about God realization, it's to be understood that this is not some artificial imposition or method to whatever, self-realization, because it's like, well, what is that? Are you just awakening to yourself? I mean, where does God fit in? Where do other people fit into that? All these questions could be asked. But this method is actually, it's purely devotional. So it's approaching God, not with any sort of, not with method for the sake of, method or imposition or manipulation of energy, right? That's generally what a method is. You're manipulating energy in some way, but it's actually, this is pure religion, is what is being put forward by the bhakti-yoga tradition, is that you're directly connecting yourself with God, through calling his holy names. And so the idea is that Krishna exists, Krishna is real, he is a transcendental personality, that can't be known through the empiric senses. It's not like you can connect with him in such a simple way. But by his grace, he reveals himself to us. That is the point, is that, the mercy and effort thing, it's like it is by grace alone or it is by works alone. No. Everything is all by his grace. Like, this is to be understood. This isn't a path or a method that you just do on your own, because that's just another way of you trying to make, something of yourself in this world, which that's the root of the very problem of our material existence. That's material consciousness. That's godlessness, actually, saying, no, it's just me and my, no. Everything is by grace. So that's the first thing that we have to understand. And like you had mentioned, we all need God. Like, this is the first thing we have to understand, or else you can't make any advancement. You might think you're making advancement. You might elevate your energy, your chakras, or become such a successful person in the world, but you're not actually you're not capable of making any advancement truly, unless you connect with God. And so that's the sambandha. That's the first step of knowledge, of any sort of success, is understanding there's me and there's God, and without him I'm totally blind and lost. So from that place, the second step is approaching one who is in knowledge. So Om Agyana Timirandasya, Gyananjana Shalakaya, right? What is it saying? And when we started chanting our invocation mantras, we're saying, Agyana, I have no knowledge, I'm blind, but by the grace of God, the spiritual master has entered my life. So we need to approach someone who's a bona fide spiritual master, meaning he's coming from the spiritual world, and they bring us this knowledge of Krishna. This is the mark of a spiritual master. He knows the science of Krishna, and the science of Krishna is the science of devotion, the path of devotion. So Lord Jesus Christ is absolutely teaching the science of Krishna. He's teaching us certain aspects of it. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, strength, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. On these two laws hang on these two commandments hang all the laws and prophets. So that's the science of devotion, is realize that you are helpless without God and chant his names, meaning call on him, which means try to love him. Love means connection. Again, personal relationship inherently means love, right? So if you form a relationship with someone, it means love is there. And of course, within the container of that relationship, all of the obstacles to love will get brought out. And so the abhidaya, the process is knowing how to deal with those things that come up. And this is actually the last thing I thought to mention before we sign off. What's so wonderful about Krishna book is this actually happens. This is something I was discussing with someone in Denver, actually, randomly, I guess, about, and there is a lot of really good content there, but basic idea is that Krishna is a transcendental personality who lives in our heart. God exists in the heart of every being. And so he's carrying out these transcendental activities, these stories. And whenever we hear them, we're actually entering into that transcendental station, if you will, which is in the heart. And there's so much to that right just there. But the wonderful point, and something that I'm very excited about, and I've been wanting to get in this book for, is that Krishna kills a whole bunch of demons in this book, right? He's a demon slayer. He's also a very cute, angelic boy, and a handsome prince and wonderful king and all these things as well. But he's doing all these things, and it's basically like, and I know we're at time here. It's like the field of the heart is the stage on which this book is spoken. And just by hearing about Krishna killing demons, he's actually doing that. Like, that's the actual reality, and so he's doing that within our heart just by hearing about it. That's the nature of absolute truth, absolute reality, transcendental reality. That's what transcendental is. Like, it's actually happening on all planes of existence. We're just blind to it, but it's actually happening. And the way that we can experience that or get the effect of that, the benefit of that, is by opening our heart to it through primarily oral reception. Just by hearing it's happening. You're connecting. How else would you be able to connect with it if simply hearing about it didn't work? So it's absolute, meaning it's not just a relative truth, like, oh, it was true for Krishna. That's right, that's what it was. It's like, these are stories from 5,000 years ago. So you could very easily say, this is a story that happened 5,000 years ago. Like the event of the cross, or of the Buddha, or of whatever, of Krishna. Like they're historical events. No, they're not historical. That would be a relative truth, but this is absolute truth, meaning you can access it always. It's always true. It will never not be true that Krishna is, taking birth, from Mother Yashoda, killing demons, loving the residents of Vrindavan. We can also participate in that. So you know, we have, this is the spiritual world, this is the prayojana. Spiritual world is there. The protection of Krishna is there. And that's very wonderful, because I'm very much needing Krishna's protection in my life. So just reading this book, you know, these things on subtle levels, they'll start, you know, Krishna will do these things, like the demons in our mind and our heart, he will act on them if you hear his stories. And the more that we hear them, you know, the deeper, you know, that gets. And on every level of our being, you know, Krishna will be with us. You know, that's what's amazing.
Yeah. Jai.
Jai.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Hare
I gotta get going. We gotta close this down, but man, that was like just such an avalanche of information. Thank you so much.
yeah. Yeah, an
Um,
hour, it's almost doesn't quite do justice, but yeah, no, I'm glad
but
it worked out.
yeah,
I think we pretty much got the app figured out.
yeah,
And we'll
yeah,
continue again tomorrow, Saturdays and Sundays.
yep,
And I'll get
yep,
to work on trying to post this to
yeah,
the internet.
yeah.
Yeah, and okay, Jai, we'll finish by chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai.
Hare Krishna. Should we do it 3 times?
Okay, let's do it 3 times. That's
Yeah.
good. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jai.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai.
Yeah. All right, Prabhu. Have a good day.
All right, you too. We'll see you.
Thanks. See ya.